I played Caroline in 2019 and played Mrs. Kennedy for 2 years prior to that in 2017 and 2018. So a total of 3 years in the pageant. And continuing the theme of it's a family affair, I was able to do it with my three daughters as well. So that was wonderful. They played some really neat roles. They played Laura, two of them played Laura, and one played Mary and Nellie as well as some other parts. So it was wonderful. And Kari was a hard act to follow on stage too. I had seen her as Caroline for 2 years before I assumed the part. And so, as one of the former actresses said, you learn if you were other parts before you've watched Caroline and you've heard her, whether you were on stage with her or backstage. And so I did take a lot of what Kari put into the role when I did it. I got involved for my daughters. It was my daughters who wanted to get involved in the production. I love acting.
I'll go tell Maggie that you're here.
Oh, Maggie, indeed. My name is Margaret to company, James.
Yes, Margaret, dear.
James, serve Mr. Beadle, please. Julie, I'm so glad you're here. You've got to come help me in the kitchen.
Oh, yes, we want everything to be just right for the Reverend. You must be simply frantic.
Oh, there is so much to do. We've just started the food and... Say, did you hear what happened at the Mercantile?
No, I so seldom hear these things firsthand.
Oh, well, Mrs. Olson is after William again.
It seems she was cleaning up in the back room when a mouse ran right up her leg. She has been yelling at William for 2 days now.
I was a theater minor in college, so I love doing it. But like Kari, I also don't live close by. Our trip every day was an hour and a half one way. And so the thought of using, by the time from the beginning of rehearsals to the end of the performance is 2/3 of the summer. So the idea of doing all that driving was not something I was super excited about. But my daughters really, really wanted to be in the production. And so I thought, well, what quality time to have with them and what an experience to share with them. And that's how I kind of got involved. So I work full time. And so in the summer, I would leave work a little early, 15, 30 minutes early. I'd have a supper packed because we wouldn't have time to get supper. So we'd eat supper in the car on the way there, go to rehearsal. Rehearsal gets done about 8:30. We'd drive home about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and I'd go to bed. And we would do that every day. And so it was very consuming, but well worth the time for sure.
It's a lot of work taking care of 11 children.
Margaret, we only have 10 children.
Oh, I was including you, dear.
I think of all the Carolines, I'm the only Caroline that actually got to play Caroline with her own daughter as Laura. So that was really cool for me. My youngest played Laura the same year that I played Caroline. And I have three daughters, and they're actually very similar in age, in difference of ages as Mary and Laura and Carrie are. And so our whole family thought that was pretty cool. But so I sort of, know how to be a mom to daughters, but we all bring our own piece to it, right? We all bring, I tried to, and it's partially just who I am too, play Caroline very warmly and affectionately. Like I was, not afraid to touch and hug the girls, and Errol as Pa, of course, and that's just kind of who I am and what I brought to the role. I don't know that Caroline was quite as warm or affectionate as I played her to be, but I also thought, based on Karen Grassel's portrayal in the television show, like the audience likes to see that, right? Because as we've seen, or as you all have talked about, like Caroline was tough. Caroline was resilient. And sometimes I think you have to be very guarded in your feelings and your emotions, right? To protect yourself and to protect your family and your kids. And so I think she had become, a little guarded after all the loss and the trauma and everything that all the pioneer families went through. And so that's kind of what, how I tried to portray her, was kind of like all of those things together, which is really hard to do. It's a challenge to try to hit all those buttons as you're playing this. Hardest scene, a lot of you have said it was fire for sure, because for exactly the reasons Kari said, it's it's line on top of line on top of line. And logistically, you're also doing a lot of physicality. You're literally fighting a fire. And the fire's not always, you don't always know exactly what's going to happen with the fire. Is it going to come on? Will it stay on? Is part of it going to go out and you're going to be, like throwing your wet bag at nothing? And that's okay. You just got to play it off. I had about a year and a half before playing Caroline, I had been diagnosed with breast cancer. And so I had gone through more than a year's worth of treatments between chemotherapy and radiation and multiple surgeries. And so I think I had a little chemo brain still left, and memorization was a lot harder than it had ever been for me when I got the role of Caroline. And so we would run lines in the car. And I mean, I was running that fire scene up until the last days still trying to make sure I got it down and that I could catch it and get all the cues and that on time. I also remember Beth's mom, Julie, who's a cosmetologist, would help me get the fake bun in the back because my hair was still too short to be able to pull back at that time. And so we would kind of slick it back and spray it a lot and kind of stick the bun on the back. And she was a gem for just helping me do that because, that was a really vulnerable time in my life too, and a traumatic time. But, as Kari said too, right? We all have struggles. We're all fighting things. We're all, just trying to get through. And that explains the pioneer spirit, so well. Lastly, I would just say that actually, this really, the people in Walnut Grove became a family to us. They really did. Some of the friends my daughters met are still very good friends of theirs, and they communicate and they see each other still. And my middle daughter, who played Laura the year before I played Caroline, she used her experience in the Laura Ingalls Wilder pageant this year in her college application essays. So she talked about it was the focus of her college application essays. And I don't know where she's going to end up yet, but I know it's going to be somewhere wonderful. So it's certainly, the experience lingers for all of us in different ways. And it was such a privilege and an honor to be a part of it. And thank you.